Hey everybody, welcome to my studio. My name is Bethany and I'm so glad you're here. We're going to be working on a pastel painting today on a piece of sanded paper from my scrap collection. And this right here is acrylic ink in sepia and purple lake. Links to this are in the description below. I am going to be applying it to the paper with some pipe foam insulation easily found at a hardware store. I like to use different materials in place of a paintbrush. Being a pastelist, I love to work with my hands, and so the closer to the paper or canvas I can get, the better, and the pipe foam helps me with that. Now I'm going to be adding some water. This is just simple water in a spray bottle, and to thin out the acrylic ink so I can add a more medium value range to the foreground grass areas. It is not my goal at this point to fill the tooth of the paper or to even cover up all of the color of the paper. I like the streaks. They mimic grasses and make for great texture in your paintings. Now I'm just patting the excess water away. It helps with the drying process. I'm continuing to add elements with the thinned acrylic ink. This is a very simple composition, not based upon a reference photo, but a very common scene in my part of the country. We have distant horizon lines and pretty scrubby short trees, beautiful paths, beautiful skies. The acrylic ink is very easy to clean up. As you see, I just wiped it out with a paper towel. Now I'm going to be using a droplet of burnt umber acrylic ink for an additional tone and color within the underpainting. You can see when I add the water to it, it makes this beautiful golden color. I want this painting to have a very warm base layer. It helps just make the painting really glow once you are adding the pastel. Now I'm going to go against what I said earlier and pick up this flat bristle brush to apply this wash of acrylic ink into the sky layers, some of the grasses, and also onto the path. I want this underpainting to be very cohesive and very warm, and the brush helps me have a little bit finer control of where I place the alcohol or the acrylic ink. Now the piece of paper is dry. It only takes about 5 to 10 minutes for it to completely dry. I like to just make sure that there's no bristles from the paintbrush or any pieces of foam that have stuck into the surface. The acrylic ink really soaks into the paper, forming a stain. Now I'm cleaning one of my pastels with this paper towel that I love to use. It doesn't flake off. It doesn't fluff up into the air too much to create a mess on your table or for you to breathe. Pastel is not good to breathe. And like I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I like to mimic the first underpainting layer with the first pastels that I use. And so that purple lake that I put down, the Merlot color of that pastel that I use, they marry well together. Now I'm using blue in the shadow areas of these little trees, bushes, and very, very loose and gestural marks. I'm not putting any detail at this point. I'm just layering in color and trying to keep the texture of the underpainting alive. You can see that I am not trying to cover up all of the underpainting, but I am thinking of the direction of the light that I want, where the light is in the painting. And for me, it's coming from the top left. And so that is where I'm going to put the lightest values, because I want to create a sense of realism as far as where the light is hitting these elements within the painting. I did choose these these pastels before I painted this piece, but you know, sometimes it helps to have a limited palette. Limit yourself and not just look at your giant box of pastels. They're so tempting to just pick up. The colors are all so beautiful, but when you limit your pastels to 10 or 15, then your painting develops much more cohesiveness and color and value and temperature. I'm continuing to add elements. Now I'm adding the background little hill or mountain with just this very, very light lavender. And you'll notice right here that I raised the hill up a little bit so it didn't kiss the top of that right-hand bush. Kissing elements, it's actually a term, can be awkward compositionally. Now I'm adding in the shadows onto this path, thinking about where the cast shadow of that left-hand tree would be, using a very, almost a grayed purple, and then also bringing in some warmth with that pink pastel and then this Naples yellow pastel. These are hard pastels that I'm using for the path. I love these two colors especially, and use them often in my paintings that have a path in them. Now I'm going to be adding just a little bit of gray and blue, adding interest with color, thinking about the grasses casting shadows on this little path, adding a little bit more warmth because I'm going to be adding some pink clouds into this painting. Now I'm using the flat, wide side of this hard pastel, it's the same pastel I used in the path, to gently whisk across the paper in what I'm just making up a cloud formation in my head. I'm letting a lot of the paper show through, and what I just showed you is that I'm still thinking of the light direction, and that the left hand side of the clouds would be more lit than the right hand side based upon my light source. Now I'm kind of experimenting with the color that I want the sky to be, using this very light turquoise, and I'm carving and cutting it into the clouds. That's one way you can make clouds. You can either, paint your sky first and then cut your clouds on top, but I really like to do the clouds first and then cut the sky into the clouds. Always keep in mind that your values from high in the sky to the horizon line, they're going to get lighter as you get closer to the horizon line. And so it's important to have a range of tones and colors from a more mid value, or really just kind of depending on the painting, a mid value to a light value. So here I'm adding a very light value. That might be a little too light, so I'm going to gently layer on top, blending in the colors from the horizon line and up into the sky. I picked up the pink hard pastel. Hard pastel is actually a great blending tool instead of your fingers. You can just gently whisk it across the surface. It's almost toning the pastel that you have put down to marry the colors together. Adding a little bit darker to the very tip top, and also some turquoise into the shadows to bring the foreground and the sky together. And then also adding some very dark turquoise, little specks and spots of flowers and grasses in those shadows. There I'm using a technique where I'm just rolling the edge of that pastel to create grasses, and adding in some very, very warm and very light greens to where I believe the sunlight would be shining. Pastel is easy. I just, I accidentally made a mark there that was a little too light for that area. So easy to fix by just layering on. If you're using a gentle touch, there should be plenty of tooth using this paper. I want the distant hill to blend with the sky, and so the edge right there is very soft. Using an up and down stroke, the side of the pastel creates a great grass shape. I don't want to put in every little blade of grass. That becomes kind of tedious. And now I'm going to, that one part of the cloud is kind of competing for me with the left-hand tree. And so I am going to gently, very, very gently, change the shape of the cloud. I've mentioned to you guys before how I paint daily in my studio, and really this a simple painting like this every day will teach you so much about the techniques you want to use, the techniques that are working for you, and some that you'll need to work on. I'm still working on different techniques on my own, and a daily painting will just move mountains for you, and as far as how quickly you learn. Many people express dismay when I tell them I paint a painting every day, but what they don't know is that they're not overly complicated, and they're definitely not masterpieces. These are practice, steady paintings that help me in my larger works in the studio. I am spending time in dedicated effort to grow and learn and try new things. And that is what I want for you guys. So turn off YouTube, get to your easel, take out your paper, and just have fun playing. I can't wait to hear what you guys paint. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week.